I was told basically that I would be this great leader of the occult. I would be this great leader of Satanism in Ireland, and they give us all these visions, what we were going to do, what we were going to be, what we had to do to make it happen as well. Here's me and my friend, two Satanists, sitting in this church, cursing the people, cursing their very marriages as well. We got to this particular week in our lives where we had planned to kill someone who had crossed us. Hi everybody, my name is Pastor Nigel Begley, and I'm a pastor in Whitewell Metropolitan Tabernacle in Belfast. And I'm here to tell you my story, my life story. Everybody has a life story, and every story is important as well. But this is my story of how I came to a saving faith in Jesus Christ. And it started a long time ago. You got to go back to childhood, because your childhood kind of forms you, doesn't it? And I grew up in Carrickfergus, right by the sea. And when I was young, I was always taken out to church. But I had a few issues going on when I was growing up, and it was really with my father. My father, yes, he went to church, but he was a very, very angry man. He was explosive, and he said he was a Christian, and he would go to church. He would take us along with him, but he would always be in my face, my brother's face as well. We'd always be finding fault, and I always felt that my father never confirmed me in many ways. And I remember going through life when I was young, and argument after argument, always pointing out some fault in my life, and then taking us to church. And I used to think, if this is Christianity, I don't want anything to do with that at all. And it got to the point in my teenage years where my father was again in my face the umpteenth time that particular day. And I just said, stuff you and stuff your Jesus. And I'm giving you the edited version, by the way. It was much worse than that. And when I said those words, something inside of me just kind of changed, and I rebelled in my heart. In fact, the Bible says that rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And I guess that's the point I really began to turn away from God. But growing up, listen, I always had that wee streak of rebellion in me, whether it was shoplifting from the corner shop down the way, or remember going in the front door of the boys' brigade, waving goodbye to my mum. She dropped me off, and then when she went, or out the back door, down the shop, and pretended I'd been in the baby the whole time, but actually I was beaking off, as to say, I was pretending to go. My mum would come round and collect me at the end of the night, and I'd be standing at the front as if I'd been the BB the whole time. But I always had this rebellion against religion, and I guess it was just my formative years didn't really help. And when I got to that stage when I was older, because I never felt I was confirmed in life or affirmed, and I began to almost become depressed. In fact, I did become depressed. I became suicidal. I hated myself. I had constant suicidal thoughts, and this kind of darkness overcame me. When you got dark thoughts, you begin to act out those dark thoughts in your life, and that's the kind of place I got to. And every time my dad talked to me about Christianity, my skin crawled. For me, Christians were just finger-pointing hypocrites. I detested Christians. When I thought of a Christian, or if someone asked me to go to church, my skin actually used to crawl. I just rebelled totally against it. And I began to go in the opposite path. I got into, like, in those days, you're back to the 80s now, folks. I'm quite old, I am 52 after all. So you're going back to the 80s, and when I was a teenager, and it was heavy metal. It was kind of like that kind of dark kind of outlook in life, and it kind of suited me to the point where I was. And so into the dark stuff like Metallica and Black Sabbath and Ronnie James Dio and all the dark metal that there was at the time. And it was something that I related to big time. And being a depressed person, I remember being on a ball on the ground many, many times, just rocking back and forward, just having suicidal thoughts. I actually had body dysmorphia as well. I hated how he looked. And I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but I hated how he looked even back then as well. All those things. I had an eating disorder as well. I would have ate once a day. I would have taken laxatives, all sorts of stuff. If I had a switch, I would have just ended my life like that there. That's the place that I found myself in. And I got to the stage in life where I kind of delved into the dark side. I loved all the horror films. I love all that kind of stuff. And for me, it was just the place to be in, you know. And then I met a friend of mine, and we hit it off straight away. Just sometimes in life, you meet somebody and like they're just like your kindred spirit. And this guy was just like that with me. We had the same sense of humor. We enjoyed all the same sort of stuff. And he had an interest in the occult as well. You know, it began with like thinking about horoscopes and then, you know, looking at the stars in the paper and what was going to happen in the days ahead. And then New Age books as well. And then I got to the point where I got more into the witchcraft books, and most importantly for me at that time, to black magic, Satanism, what they would call the left-hand path. And for me, I guess looking back on it, when you're out of control in your life and you have all this stuff going on, you try to regain control. And so when I got into those books, for me it was like a self-help book in a way. You know, you're looking at how to take control, how to do a ritual, how to do something that would bring you control of your life again. And I gradually began this downward descent, if you like, into Satanism and the occult. And I'll be honest with you, for me, I felt addicted to it. Now, people can be addicted to drink or to drugs or even to sleeping around, but for me, the evil of life and all those rituals was the very thing that got me addicted. It was the thing that got me excited to almost form and shape the world around about me by getting involved in those rituals. And one of the things, one of the laws of magic in those days and today as well, is do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And that was my motto for life. I will do what I want. Forget about the 10 Commandments. Forget about, you know, the law of God. I don't want anything to do with that kind of stuff. But I will do what I want. And anything is open to me. I can do it. It's okay. And I remember one day I was sitting down in my bedroom and I had a candle and I put it on the floor on a saucer. And I knew that I was being drawn into this life. And I knew that the devil basically had his fingerprint on me and was drawing me closer. And I said, okay, Satan, if you want me to be the person you want me to be, if you want me to get involved with all this dark side of life, make this flame, I said it out loud, make this flame touch that ceiling. And when I said that, it flew up and it hit the very ceiling. It was like a blue neon flame. And in that moment, I knew that I was called to, in my heart, I was called to the dark side of life. For me, it was like a confirmation, an affirmation that my own father never could give me. And I felt I belonged, and I felt I was called to something greater than me. And that was the mindset that I had. And of course, my friend at the time called Alistair was really deeply into it as well. And I kind of got him more involved in it. And I had all sorts of things like demon guides, and the demonic was open and operating around about me at all times. And so it was something I lived with and actually I enjoyed, sad to say. And I operated in it every moment of the day. And there wasn't a moment in my life I wasn't thinking about the occult or trying to do something. And we were deadly serious about it as well. I guess in a way, Alistair became like, if you remember in the Bible, it says that David and Jonathan's hearts were knit together. They were bosom buddies. Well, we were like the evil version of that, me and Alistair, who was my best friend. And we got into it, and being involved so deeply, I was told basically that I would be this great leader of the occult. I would be this great leader of Satanism in Ireland. And they give us all these visions of what we were going to do, what we were going to be, what we had to do to make it happen as well. And we bought into the vision so deeply. We would then start bringing people into our coven. We started a coven down a place called Whitehead. And we drew people into it. We kind of coerced them into it, to be honest with you. And all to follow the vision that we were given. People would try to curse us from other covens and stuff, but we were more powerful than they were. You walk in this all the time. I remember getting into my car one night after doing a ritual, and I got into my car, and one of those nights where it was really, really cold. Do you ever get in the car when it's cold and there's condensation at the back of your car and the windscreen? And I got in, and you look in the rear view mirror, to check before you drive off. As I was driving off, the condensation on the back of my windscreen was in the perfect shape of Godo Mendes, as in that half goat, half man version that you see of Satan. So it's like he was confirming who I was. He letting me know I had his favour every step of the way. And for me, it was so obvious. But as time went on, the very thing you thought you were getting in control of, actually you realize it was beginning to control you more and more and more. And our thought processes, how we rationalized, all began to get out of control, to the point where there was a week where we actually plotted to kill somebody who had crossed us, and we thought he deserved it at the time, and it was something we thought this person needed to have happen to them. But on the build up to that, it's funny how God moves, because I had a friend who I knew for quite a few years. They lived in a place called Ballyclare, and you called him Big Mo. Now, Big Mo had all the tattoos and everything else, and he was the kind of guy who had all the paramilitary links, and I knew him so well. He was a bit of a boyo, as they say. And but one day he came in to where he worked. It was my cousin's pizza parlor, and I seen him. And I says, Mo, you've changed. And I knew straight away he'd become a Christian, because I could see this change in him. His outlook was different, how he talked was different. There was this light in his eyes. And I says, you have become a Christian, haven't you? And he says, yes. And for, I think, the next 6 months, he began to invite me out to church every single week that he saw me. And he used to do my head in. So I used to bring in all my magic books and stuff, and amulets and magical, statues, and try to freak him out. But no matter what I did, I could not get his eyes off this Jesus. When I looked at him, I could see he was free from his previous life. He had a joy about him. There was a happiness. He was content. And no matter how many difficult questions I asked him, he would just say, Nige, I will go home. I'll go to church on Sunday. I will ask the pastor all the difficult questions. I'll get the answer for you. I'll come back again. And when I come back, I'll have that answer the question. And, he could have been a theologian, he could have been a philosopher, and give me the answer straight away. But I don't think it would have affected me or impressed me as much as this man's simple faith that I could not shake, no matter how many times I tried. And it's funny how God works, because I saw this as a challenge to try and put him off his faith, and even to try and put his church off as well. And so we ended up going down to his church. He asked me that many times, says, okay, I'm going to go. So I went down to his church, and I took my henchman in the coven with me as well. We went down to curse his church, to curse the congregation, to mutter those curses under our breaths as we were sitting there, as they were worshipping. So we went in, and we were praying to Satan and stuff, and we were, calling all these things down and all these things up as well as we went in. And we went in and we sat down, I think, near the back of the church, and it was in Ballyclare. And as we were sitting there, here's me and my friend, two Satanists, sitting in this church, cursing the church, cursing the people, cursing their very marriages as well. And all of a sudden, I encounter the presence of the living God, and there's this peace. There's this overwhelming sense of holiness as well, and it comes out of absolutely nowhere. And here's the thing: we go in there thinking that we know what we're doing. We're these tough guys, and we don't believe in all this namby-pamby nonsense. You know what I mean? But that church knew we were coming. So they kind of ambushed us with prayer. They've been praying for weeks and weeks and weeks for us. They knew what they were at. We come in thinking like nobody really knows us or anything. So we go in, we start to do our thing. Unbeknownst to us, they had been grabbing a hold of the horns of the altar and interceding for us and for our souls. And we go in and I encounter this presence. Now, I don't get saved at this point, don't get me wrong, but I encounter this presence that is pure, that affects me out of nowhere. And as they're worshiping, as I'm trying to curse them, a tear, it comes out and begins to run down my face. Now, my friend who's sitting beside me is experiencing the exact same thing, and he's a Satanist as well. He would do anything for me, and he's actually afraid of me. He's afraid because he's sitting there, and I'm the leader, and he's number two. He's the henchman, and he's sitting there. He's beginning to feel the presence of God too. He's having tears come down his cheeks, and he's afraid. And he tells me this years later. And if I turn around and see the tears in his face, that when we get out saying I'm going to kill him, he actually believes I'm going to kill him if I notice he is crying. And I didn't notice he was crying, to be honest with you, because I was trying to keep my own tears in at the time as well, because of the holiness of God. And we leave it, we do our thing, but we're affected by what we experience. And I go out of there, and it's funny how God works. He works sometimes when he has you under conviction. He does it in stages. And that was a stage where I just felt, what on earth just happened to me? And I come out, and then we came in to do serious harm and damage to that people and to that church. But as we're driving home, we drove home in silence. It was the weirdest thing. Like, what on earth just happened? And we didn't use those lovely words. It was much worse than that there. There's a few swear words going around. What on earth just happened? Kind of thing. And we go back, but I go back into my old life. And I go back into doing what I was doing before, rituals and stuff, and being involved in the left-hand path. But when I go back to do all that stuff, something has changed. Because when I get in to do a ritual, all of a sudden I have a conscience. I never had a conscience before. And I'm trying to do things which came fruity before. But after going to church, now I begin to feel bad about what I'm doing. I had this internal fight going on I had to, with my will, force myself to do certain things that came so easily before. I was going, what on earth is this? And I knew that God was working on my life, but I didn't want him. I really did not want God in my heart. And, to me, it was still those memories of years ago, and my father, and I had all these promises from Satan about what we're going to do, how we're going to be this great coven, and we'd start to do what we're called to do. And I'd seen favor, and I'd seen, everything I do just be blessed, magically, and be blessed from the dark side. And I knew I was in that right road that I'd been called in. At least I thought I did. But all of a sudden, I have this fight going on internally, and it makes me question who I am. It makes me question where I am in life and why I'm here. I was beginning to realize, as my conscience was awakened again, if you like, that I was maybe not on the right path. I began to have these thoughts come in all the time, even though I was still trying to do what I was doing. And it was a real battle every single day. And every time God got close, I was then running away again. I just did not want this love. And yet, in the middle of it all, I began to come under more and more conviction. And it was a funny place to be in, I'll be honest with you. We got to this particular week in our lives where we had planned to kill someone who had crossed us. And when you get to that place, it's serious. But during the build-up to that whole thing, these words kept coming back into my mind and in my heart as well. It was this phrase, it's your last chance. That phrase kept coming back. It's your last chance. It's your last chance. It's your last chance. Over and over and over again. Someone invited me to go to Whitewell Church in Belfast. And so I fought it for a long time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go. So I actually went that Sunday night. It was I was 23 and it was a really warm summer's night. And I remember driving down, and because of the way I was, because of the life I led, I drove down the road pretending I was going to go straight ahead. In the very last moment, I veered into the car park, worried about the demonic trying to stop me going in. And under attack, I went into the church and upstairs I sat down at this big, massive church. I remember walking in the double doors upstairs, and I think the choir was actually singing. I came a little bit late. The choir was singing. This wall of sound just kind of hit me out of nowhere. It was like, wow. And I'm up, and I sat at the very, very back row, and Pastor McConnell was obviously there at the time, and he brought the gospel message, and he threw it in the net, as they say, and I was not for getting saved. And it's funny how it works, because I closed my eyes and I'm not putting my hand up. There's no way I'm putting my hand up. And closed my eyes. Maybe one or two got saved. And he said these words. He says, there's someone here and it's their last chance. The very same words that had been repeated to me time in, time out the last number of weeks. He repeats the very phrase that God has been placing into my heart. And like, even then I went, no chance. And then as my eyes were closed at the time, someone touches my arm. And I look up, and I look around me. Everybody around me has their eyes closed and their heads bowed, and there's nobody there. And I know that God is telling me, I'm talking to you, pal. This is your last chance. If you don't get saved, I will not speak to you again. And even then, I refused to listen. Here's the grace of God, folks. Here's the long suffering of God as well. I didn't put my hand up. Under conviction, yes. Would I bow the knee? No. Would I confess with my mouth? No. I wouldn't do it. Would I believe with my heart? No. So the service ended, and I walked at the end of the service under conviction, and I went home. And as I went home, again, that feeling of knowing it's my last chance, knowing that I had to get right with God, it's like he cornered me and he overwhelmed me with his goodness and his love, and it just poured out upon me. And I just gave up, and I just says, okay, I invite you into my heart and into my life. And he saved me there and then. And it was absolutely amazing, and it was fantastic. But here's the thing, I didn't know how to talk about where I'd come from. How do you say to people, yeah, I was, a Satanist. I was the guy who was in charge of a coven. How do you even begin to have that conversation with somebody? How do they even understand where you've come from with your life experiences? And so I kept it all bottled up inside and started going to the Whitewell Church. And I knew that once I stood back from the coven, that would fall apart. But I knew my friend was still there, and I was praying for him. And long story short, he ends up getting saved as well. And he ends up going to Whitewell Church a good few months later. And it's amazing how God works. Here's these two guys, who are running this coven, who have turned against God, who've sold their soul, literally sold their soul in blood, turned away from all things to do with Christianity, done their own thing. And yet God has touched their lives and changed the both of us. And so he gets saved as well. He's great. He can talk about it. He's just the way he is. He's a different personality to me. And he gets up the front of the church, gets prayed for, and all this stuff, all these demons come out of him, and he's set free. But me, I can't talk about it. And that's the way I was, just who I was. I've changed over the years, but back then. And it's funny because God uses what you go through in life, folks, and your experiences to help other people later on. And I've found that in my own life, that even going through what I've went through, even through suicidal thoughts, even through depression, even through the occult and New Age, I'm able to help other people now as well. I can invest in their lives from what I've been through. But at that moment, I didn't know anybody like that I could just share things with. And so I was under attack basically every night, because what I was, what I had done, who I had been, literally just pinned down the bed every single night by demonic forces. It's you tell the story and people just don't believe it. It is what it is. It happened, trust me. And pinned down, couldn't move. You felt like a power drill was going off in your head. And I wake up. I was usually in the middle of the night and you're sleeping, and you'd wake up and you just say, Lord help me. You couldn't even speak, but you'd think these words, Lord help me. And as soon as you said the first L in Lord, it stopped. And I went on for an awful long time, like months and months and months. But God was teaching me something. There's power in the name of Jesus Christ. And I cried out to God one night, and I cried and I cried and I cried. It got so bad. I knew if I continued on, I'd go back to my old life. I didn't want to go back to my old life. And I cried on to him over and over and over one night. And I sobbed and I shouted and I pleaded and I went to sleep. In the middle of my night sleep, I'm aware that I'm in the presence of the living God. I remember this thought came to me. I went, this is God. This is the creator of the universe. And I was in his presence. And I can't describe how it feels to be in the very presence of the one who created all the universe and the galaxies and everything that's in it as well. But yet here I was. And I knew it was him. There's no question marks when you're in the presence of the living God. And it's like he was doing something deep, and he was, because of all the hurt and the pain from years ago with my father. And it's like I was sitting on his knee, and this book opens up in front of me, and on the left hand page there was a word that was highlighted, and the word faith was highlighted. He just said these words: I am going to lay faith on your heart. And in that instant, I totally changed. See, all the depression, all the oppression, all the feelings of inferiority, all the self-hatred, all the things that ruled my life, all of a sudden, this new creature in Christ was my experience. He totally and utterly changed me. He did a very deep work inside of me. And when I woke up, I was different. I mean, I was just this different person. And I look back on it now, and it's like I was like a hippie. You know, you go out and you look at creation. I want to hug the trees. And how beautiful how beautiful is the world around about me. I could see with new eyes. It was like, what on earth is this that I'm experiencing? But God took all that pain and all that angst and all that trouble away from me. And he totally changed me in that instant, in his presence, because I gave it all to him. And if you can save me, if you can change me, you can change absolutely anybody. And so after, that experience, life began to fall into place. I've always had to wait for things, I had to wait. He called me to be a pastor. I did not want to be a pastor. Trust me, it's the last thing I wanted to do or be, because I'm not an upfront kind of guy. And, he put that thought in my heart a long time ago to be a pastor. I went, no, anybody but me. Get anybody you want. Just don't call me. But listen, he provided everything along the way. Bible college, went through there 3 years of Bible college, progressed through that, got my certificate, end up being in Wales, ministering for 12 years. My lovely wife, Emma Jane, and we actually got married 2005, the 30th of June, and the very next day we moved to Wales to minister in the valleys, or in the valleys, as they say over there, and I had 2 kids who were born over there in the valleys as well, who are actually Welsh. But sadly, they've lost their accent, so we moved back to Northern Ireland after 12 years. But so I've had some experiences with God that, I could be here all day talking to you about them. But one thing I can say is this, that God will never let you down. He will never, ever let you fall. He will never, even if you do fall, even if you muck up in life, always remember this. The Apostle Paul says to keep pressing on. See, if you're a Christian today and you feel like, you know what, I've just messed up. I learned this a long time ago. Paul says, keep pressing on. What does he mean? Dust yourself down, get back up, and keep walking in faith, because the forgiveness of God is there. Like he said to Jonah, it says in the word of God, the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the second time. There's grace, there's forgiveness, and there's an abundance of it with the Lord. So listen, I hope this testimony, my life story, has helped you or encouraged you in some way. And I thank Josh for giving me the opportunity to share my testimony with you. And if you want to get in touch with me or with Josh, you're very welcome to do so. May God bless each and every one of you.
Just want to say a big thank you to everyone that watches this channel, and we have some exciting news. We are looking to help people who want to get into YouTube or even just social media in general. If you feel like God's calling you, to start a ministry, to preach online, but you just don't know how to start, or you're nervous and you want someone to walk you through it and help you, we can help you with that. So there's going to be a link below to the website if you want to go check it out. I look forward to hopefully working with you. So yeah, God bless.